Hello, hello. I'm Mehdi Hasan. This is a breaking news Zeteo live on YouTube and Substack. I'm here with our political correspondent, Prem Thakker. Prem, what is the big news out of New York tonight?
Well, Zohran Kwame Mamdani, 33-year-old socialist, has shocked the world and upsetted expectations and is on his way to be the Democratic nominee.
Great. We're having a bit of a technical issue. Give me 1 second while I try and fix this out. Actually, Prem, you carry on telling people what's going on. I'm going to try and fix the
Sure.
technical issues we're having in the middle of the night. Hold on 1 second.
Absolutely. So, as you guys heard, there was feedback of both me and Mehdi, so twice as much of us. I'm not sure if you're paying for that. But yes, today we watched as Zohran Mamdani, 33-year-old socialist, shocked the world in a fashion that I think many people would argue is even more shocking than AOC's historic win back in 2018 when she upset Joe Crowley, Democratic leadership. The reason this is so significant is not just because of the fact that this is a young socialist, a young upstart candidate who just months ago was polling, at a puttering pace. He was below even people including Jessica Ramos, who eventually endorsed Andrew Cuomo, but as well as Scott Stringer, Brad Lander, who went on to be a key Zohran Mamdani ally. But just as well, this was thousands and thousands and thousands of New York City voters, the biggest city in America, going out in droves in the heat, one of the hottest days in New York City in over 10 years at this time of year, to vote for Zohran Mamdani. And one other aspect that I think is really remarkable is that in the early returns, we saw huge amounts of likely support for Zohran Mamdani through early voting, mail-in voting, and so on. Huge amounts of voters under the age of 44 who were really coming out in droves in historic ways that really showed a good sign of Zohran Mamdani's possible success. But today on election day, we thought that as time went on, it would be a Mamdani mirage, the lead would dissipate a bit, and that never happened. Every single voting dump, Zohran Mamdani maintained an 8-point lead over and over and over again. And that's why you saw what we saw tonight, which is Cuomo deciding, I just have to concede. There's no mathematical way, it seems like, for him to come back in the subsequent rounds to come.
He saved us a lot of time, Andrew Cuomo. We can thank him for one thing, because waiting till next week, till July the 1st, would have been so frustrating when, as you say, mathematically he couldn't win anyways. So why don't we just call it tonight? We've called it tonight. We're having this live. For people joining this live, I don't know how to overstate it. Zohran Mamdani has won the New York Democratic mayoral primary, 33-year-old lawmaker, state lawmaker, state assembly member from Queens, born in Uganda, Muslim, member of the Democratic Socialists of America. And here he is on the cusp of becoming the mayor of the world's greatest city, the New Yorkers might say, certainly one of the world's most powerful and influential cities. And I don't know who it's a bigger slap in the face to: the Democratic establishment, Andrew Cuomo himself, people like Bill Ackman, who funded Andrew Cuomo, the pro-Israel lobby, which threw the kitchen sink at him in recent days, called him an anti-Semite, called him an Israel hater. Even on Stephen Colbert's show just last night, on the eve of the election, Colbert was asking him, oh, do you recognize Israel's right to exist? They tried everything with him. The New York Post headline this morning, just attack, attack, attack. And yet, forget round 7 or 8, he wins round 1. Prem, you mentioned the polls. I went back and checked. Emerson College in February had him at 1%, had Andrew Cuomo more than 30 points ahead. And tonight he wins in the first round. I think 9 points clear he is right now, as we wait for the final few votes to come in.
Yeah. So, like I said, throughout the night, he maintained about an 8-point lead. And one thing that I would point people to is that there are certain neighborhoods for which, if you look at the precincts, firstly, there are so many precincts for which Mamdani won outright, in which it is shocking. I mean, in Staten Island, a very conservative part of New York
Yes.
City, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of people that came out to support Zohran Mamdani in the first round. Remember, tonight's results that we got were just the first round results. So these were people's first preferences. And that's important because when you remember, there was a very large campaign fielded by the Working Families Party, Democratic Socialists of America, as well as several of the mayoral candidacies to explicitly not rank Cuomo. Do not rank Cuomo. Here's a slate of 5 candidates you can rate instead. So when you take that to its conclusion, if Zohran Mamdani is winning 43% of the vote in the first round, and you have Brad Lander at, let's say, 11 to 12%, let's say conservatively, very conservatively, 60% of those votes go to Mamdani, and you do the same amount of pattern for Adrian Adams, Selner Myrie, Michael Blake, and so on, you can only imagine what the final numbers will look like, which is why you see Cuomo so readily conceding tonight.
So you and I both had this thought a week ago. Our former colleagues at The Inset ran a piece about it this week, which is it's not over tonight because Andrew Cuomo's just going to run as an independent. He's got $30-40 million behind him. He's got some of the world's richest men like Bill Ackman throwing money at him. And yet there is a small possibility he won't even do that. I mean, he's left the door open tonight, but he said the fact that he called to concede, which no one saw coming, no one literally saw Andrew Cuomo conceding tonight. And the idea that the humiliation of tonight might be something he doesn't want to endure again at the general election. I mean, the fact that he even ran was bizarre. He didn't want this job. He had no interest in the mayoralty. He even said himself, I was already governor. It was a better job, bigger job. He didn't live in New York. And yet now the humiliation of this, we hope, will stop him from actually doing this spoiler independent campaign. I should remind people at home that Eric Adams, the incumbent mayor of New York, who was the Democratic nominee last time round, is running as an independent, despite having been indicted by the DOJ, and then the Trump DOJ then dropped the Biden DOJ's indictment. He's a deeply dodgy dude. But if Cuomo doesn't run, then really it is Zohran Mamdani's mayoralty come later this year. And again, the shock to the system, the economic system, the political system, on so many levels, his youth, his socialist politics, his Muslim background, his views on Israel, his economic platform of free things that people don't like. People don't like, you can't get people free things. Yes, you can, right? You can pay for it. The shock to the system on so many levels. And of course, the Democratic Party establishment, which has been a gerontocracy for so long, and you and I have discussed this before. If I'm Chuck Schumer tonight, I may be slightly sweating, right? If Chuck Schumer thinking about future primaries from an AOC type, I mean, this is really a shot across the bow of all those old folks. And by the way, I should point out to people at home, not a bigger result, but Robert Garcia, I believe, won the oversight race today to be the leading Democrat on the oversight committee. I think he's under the age of 45, which is a shock when it comes to the Democratic Party. So maybe people are waking up, both in Congress and at the municipal level, to the gerontocracy, to the corrupt establishment, and saying, let's give a 33-year-old a chance. I hate to say this, I hate to do the cliche, Prem, but are there shades of Obama here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that question is, I think, especially interesting to me as we think of this possibility of Cuomo potentially running an independent campaign in the weeks to come, which is that if he chooses to, he has completely lost the only element, the only reason that justified his candidacy in the first place, which was his name and the sense of the inevitability of that name.
Yes.
That if he's already governor, this has got to be a walk in the park. And that has been totally shattered such that even people who are perhaps still Obama loyalists to this day, or even further loyalists to the party generally, they are forced to concede to the fact that Zohran Mamdani, it's not just about, oh, he's a young guy or, oh, he's a fighter. His ideology is not only threatening the old guard, but is winning the message. And so in some respects, what we saw in Obama at that time was the same thing. Zohran Mamdani seems like someone who wants to maintain that throughout his career, and hopefully we'll see that to be the case. We'll see. I mean, politics is politics. But in this moment in time, the force of what we saw Obama had in 2008 is the same force that people have to reckon with so much that they have to adjust their prize as much as they can to try to still, hold on to, well, it's not because he's socialist, or it's not it's because he's young.
Adjusting the prize is what a lot of pundits will be doing. I can't wait to see Matthew Iglesias' take on all this. Sending thoughts and prayers to Matthew Iglesias and to Bill Ackman and to Jonathan Chait, sending a lot of thoughts and prayers to those folks tonight. In terms of the Obama analogy, I mean, again, it's a little cliched, but I can't help but do it. Hillary Clinton, as you say, name recognition she had, inevitability. And when Obama blew that up, it was all over. And of course, you've got the guy with the funny sounding name. And of course, the right wingers believe that Obama was born in Africa. Mamdani actually is born in Africa, to be clear. You don't need to birther him. Sadly, I said to a family member earlier today, I said, were he not born in Uganda, if he wins tonight, he would immediately go into a 2028 horse race. Everyone would be talking about, this is the guy the left is looking for. I just came from an event in DC with Ro Khanna, who is almost certainly planning to run as a progressive anti-war candidate in the 28 race. People have talked about AOC running, but there aren't that many progressives being talked about for president If he wasn't born in Uganda, surely tonight we would be talking about this young, fresh face. And you said ideology. Let's not forget the campaigning. The Pod Save guys who are friends of mine, Dan Pfeiffer, John Farrow, they've all acknowledged the way he ran this campaign. Also fascinating. The guy spent what, Friday? Was it Friday night? Saturday, I've lost track of all days. Where he walked the length and breadth of Manhattan, shaking people's hands, people stopping in the street, young people, young white men, which apparently the Democrats have lost touch with. Guess who likes Zohran Mamdani? Young white men.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the recipe is there. And I think another thing that's worth looking into in terms of the precinct data is I remember after this past election, there was this big narrative about the AOC Trump voters, which was definitely significant. And that again is the case here too, where once you look at the precinct data, the pattern is very, very, very present. I mean,
because it's
you mentioned
anti-establishment.
Staten Island already.
Anti-establishment.
Exactly. Yeah. There's the AOC Trump voter. There's now almost certainly the Mamdani Trump voter. And I think, we've spent the past 9 years, column after column after column about the elusive Trump voter in the diner. How are you supposed to reach them? How are you supposed to reach the young white men? Or how are you supposed to reach, idiosyncratic voters? The answer is so evidently clear. And it's so evident such that if anyone tells you the opposite or continues holding on to something that we've tried for the past 9 years, or seen them try, I should say, for the past 9 years, you can just dismiss them. Like, it's enough.
Yeah.
We've had enough proof for year after year after year, but this is, I mean,
it's Bernie,
so
it's
earth-shattering.
AOC.
You cannot reject it. It's so in your face.
Bernie Sanders 2016 and 2020, AOC in the recent races, as you say, AOC Trump voter. I would love to chat to the Mamdani Trump voters, the people who voted Donald Trump Muslim ban at the national level and then voted for the Muslim Socialist at the mayoral level. I mean, look, we're two brown men chatting about this right now. I'm a Muslim brown man. Let's not forget, identity politics is a bad word these days in America, but I'll tell you what, the message this sends at a time when America feels like a very dark place, anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, anti-brown folks, ICE raiding everything. And by the way, that's a big factor in this election. What will a New York mayor do with ICE? Which Eric Adams, no one had any faith in Eric Adams. I do think we need to talk about. I'm from London, Prem, where a Muslim mayor is in his third term right now, Sadiq Khan, despite the right-wingers throwing the kitchen sink at him every 4 or 5 years. Mamdani is only just getting started. As I say, my big fear was if Cuomo wins, it's not over yet. Now, we don't know what Cuomo is going to do, but I will say this. Jamal Bowman, Zeteo contributor, big campaigner for Zohran. I texted him a few weeks ago when the polls were when he was first starting to narrow them. I said, do we dare to believe, Jamal? Do we dare to believe? And Jamal said, I said, my head says he can't do it. My heart says he should do it. And Jamal said, I'm going to prove your head wrong. And shout out to Jamal Bowman, who campaigned very hard for Zohran and Zohran's message. But it's a big win tonight. Regardless of what happens in the general election, history has been made tonight.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when you bring up identity, I think one thing that's very much worth underscoring here is that in these times, it is, as you say, so easy to feel dark and hopeless and cynical and to look inward rather than to look outward. What Zohran Mamdani, and in some respects, Zohran Mamdani and Brad Lander's campaign showed is this absolutely joyful vision of politics that not only imagines a politics that serves you better, but that serves the neighbors around you better. You think about how explicitly this campaign welcomed the idea of a melting pot. You had Chiose speaking in Chinese to reach voters. You had Zohran Mamdani speaking Spanish on the street to reach voters. You had an imam today speaking Spanish to reach voters. You had this complete embrace of multiculturalism, this idea that we actually can be for each other. And so often, that message is put aside or not seen as serious. But we are in a storm of the most serious stakes that anyone in this country can imagine. As you say, ICE kidnappings. We have a devastating climate crisis. We have a just astronomical affordability crisis. And people really are looking for some level of hope. And sometimes that hope can come in a message like this. And so I think, if nothing else, when people, try to debate the specific politics, the ideologies, try to, make it seem like their prayers are the correct ones, you cannot deny the basic fact that this politics of hope and joy and inclusion and the fact that we could do better on behalf of each other is a winning one.
A couple of things. For the brown folks watching, for the Desi folks at home, A couple of things. One is the highlight of the campaign for me. He ran an amazing social media
Oh
campaign.
yes.
Like he should be giving bonuses out tonight. But my favorite ad was the ad in Hindi where he explained using
Yes.
lassi how to do ranked choice voting, which was chef's kiss, perfection. And of course, for Desi people, when they discovered that his mother was Meera Nair, the director of The Namesake and Monsoon Wedding, one of my favorite films. That's one thing. You mentioned joy, and I'm sure a lot of people watching might cringe a little and say, joy, wasn't that Kamala Harris's message? Joy, joy, joy. And I think the difference here, as you well know better than me, is that it was a joyful message with Bradlander, as you say, but a unashamedly progressive message, right? He defied the
Mm,
people who say, well, policy has nothing to do with elections. I mean, I've said that in the past. I've said Americans don't vote on policy. That's true. It's not the defining issue. But to have a clear, authentic candidacy where he's saying, I'm going to deal with the rent crisis. I'm going to deal with the transportation cost crisis, the affordability crisis. He has a clear narrative and a clear vision. And one thing he's often said is like, don't lower the roof of your expectations. Democrats are always saying, well, we can't
mm,
achieve that much. We got to aim lower. Republicans, meanwhile, are saying we're going to annex Greenland, right? Democrats need to think big, have aspirational visions, be ambitious, be bold. And he actually did it. He offered a bold platform. They all said, oh, it can't be done. Well, we'll see if it can be done. And by the way, Prem, there's a lot of pressure on him if he wins to deliver, right? This is one thing the
mhm,
Iglesiases and the
mhm.
Derek Thompson and Ezra Kleins are right about, which is delivery matters as much as the promises. And you're seeing this in places like Chicago, where a lefty mayor has super low approval ratings. Although in Boston, a progressive mayor has super high approval ratings. So which way will he go? I'm sure I mean, this is the great criticism of him from the New York Times. He doesn't have any experience running things. Well, he's 33 years old. Let's see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's totally true, and it seems like Mamdani himself has really taken that quite seriously as a challenge to make sure that delivery is on the forefront of his priorities, which is why I think his coalition with Brad Lander, as well as some of the other candidates, I think will prove to be very helpful because they seem also like very serious policy thinkers. Um,
I hope Brad Lander is the deputy mayor for something. I mean,
Absolutely, seeing them
I
both
mean,
together, it was such a powerful duo and a very beautiful one that really again showed that this can be a politics of addition in a very sincere way and not just a sort of illusory way.
you got to wonder what 2020 would have looked like if Warren and Sanders had done a Lander
I was
Mamdani
just thinking that.
coalition,
Yeah,
right?
no, truly.
You got
How
to wonder
different
what
things would have
happened.
been.
I mean,
I
they have modeled how left and liberals, the progressive center left and the socialist left can work together and not always be at each other's necks, circular firing squad of the left.
Definitely. Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, they really, I think, did master the craft of staying true to their convictions, but as much as they can, treating other people seriously as individuals who could be persuadable, as people who could be brought in, if nothing else, to at least give them a chance. And I think that is a good model for any politician, but especially progressive ones nationwide, especially when they're dismissed as people who are unserious about persuasion. One thing I'm curious about that I think we have to address, and I would love your thoughts on, is so often as well in the past year and a half, we've been told that Gaza and Israel's genocide in Gaza, and of course Israel's subsequent violence in the region beyond, does not matter electorally or is marginal. I'm curious what your thoughts are in a race for which, even outside of Mamdani's own volition, it kept being an issue. You saw the debates where he was
Yes,
continually asked about it, the endless
yes,
op-ed after op-ed about bad faith claims of anti-Semitism against him. How do
yes.
you feel that this election shows the potential electoral impact or at least significance of
Well,
this
it's a
issue?
great question because, of course, this was a Democratic primary race, right? So let's not extrapolate too much. In the general election, if Cuomo runs independent, Eric Adams, whatever it is, the Bill Ackmans of this world will throw cash in a pro-Israel direction. The smears will continue against Mamdani. I can only imagine what the Rupert Murdoch media is planning for Mamdani over the next few weeks. It's going to be vicious and brutal. I'm from the UK, where Jeremy Corbyn was destroyed over weaponized claims of anti-Semitism. He was told, you by no uncertain terms, you could not be allowed near power, even when he came very close to it in 2017. I think there's going to be a lot more attacks. But what's interesting is it's very clear where the Democratic base is. And as I said earlier in this conversation, I was just with Ro Khanna tonight at Busboys and Poets in DC talking about this issue. And Congressman Khanna was making the point to the crowd, who was much more left wing than him, that, I get it. Like the party needs to be where the base is on this issue. And the base is very anti-genocide. The base is very anti-blindly arming Israel. You look at the polling out just today, I think it's something like 83 or 87% of Democrats disapprove of Trump's strikes on Iran. Just astonishingly big number, which is not reflected in Congress, by the way, by the party representatives. Complete disconnect between party elites, party representatives, and the base and the voters. So in New York, that was very clear that these attacks didn't work with the base. Now, they might work in a general election. I mean, I'm cynical enough to think they might still work in a general election. New York is a city full of people who are, quite centrist, quite hawkish, quite whatever word you want to use, pro-Israel folks, older Jewish voters. I say older because younger Jewish voters are very keen on Mamdani and are not so keen on Netanyahu. So it'll be interesting. Look, Israel shouldn't play any role in this race. The mayor of New York has nothing to do with Israel. And it wasn't Mamdani going around saying BDS, BDS, protesting. It was people bringing up his past views and trying to challenge him and asking him, will you visit Israel? Which is not a fealty test any mayoral candidate should have to take. It has made the pro-Israel side look weak. We saw ridiculous posts from Israelis. I think there was one state lawmaker who was in Israel and posted, I'm here in Israel, and everyone's asking about Mamdani in New York as they're getting bombed by Iran. Apparently New York was on their mind. This is the kind of effed up priorities of certain people on the pro-Israel side, why they're such one-issue voters. But look, he has broken that spell. He's broken that, whatever you want to call it, taboo, consensus, fear that you can't run and take a strong anti-Israeli government position, if not anti-Israel position. But again, as mayor, it's not something that's going to affect him. As mayor, he's going to be focused on how do I bring rents down, right? How do I how do I implement my bus plan? That's going to be the big questions that matter. But look, there will be other Democrats who will be inspired by this. We can't even tonight. I mean, this is a reaction. We're having a chat. We're going to revisit this much more with analysis and context in the coming days and weeks. Right now, tonight, I don't think we can anticipate the kind of knock-on effects that this is going to have, the ripple effects on the party in terms of which candidates run in 26, which candidates run in 28, what lessons are taken from this race. You know that political commentators love to look for every possible lesson that can be taken from a single race. And as you pointed out earlier, some of the lessons from this race are undeniable. The way he ran his campaign, the impact of his policy platform, and as you say, the failure of the pro-Israel attacks to land. I should say this before we wrap up. He's the first, he will be, if he wins, he hasn't won yet. If he wins the mayoralty, he will be the first South Asian mayor of New York City, the first African-born mayor of New York City, the first Muslim mayor of New York City. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm guessing one of the, if not the youngest mayor in modern American history of New York City, and the first rapper in Gracie Mansion. Let's not forget the rapper.
Absolutely.
Many people came late to the Mamdani was a rapper.
Don't bury the lead. Don't bury the lead.
Don't bury the lead. In terms of burying the leads, everyone check out Prem's piece from tonight, which has just gone out to all Zeteo subscribers around the world, summarizing the monumental result that was Zohran Mamdani winning the first round of the New York Democratic mayoral race, and basically all of the rounds, because mathematically Cuomo can't win, and Cuomo has conceded tonight. Andrew Cuomo, son of a former governor himself, the most money in the race, defeated by Zohran Kwame Mamdani, 33 years old, from Queens, New York. Good night, everyone.